Hello and welcome, rookie card collecting friends. Victor, the rookie card specialist here. And I am going to get into a topic today that I'm really considering, and I'm hoping to get your feedback. But I am currently living in the Northwest Indiana region, and there are no card shows in my area, like absolutely zero. For me to go to a card show, and I'm speaking more of a local card show, I have to go to either South Bend, Indiana, or I have to go to the west suburbs of Chicago. Currently in Northwest Indiana, there is 7 counties with a population of about 867,000 people, and there are no card shows in my area. I also live very close to Cook County, Illinois. Cook County, Illinois has about 5 million people in it, and there are still very few card shows in the area. So I am now considering becoming a show promoter in my region. It's a pretty big ask of myself, so I'm kind of going into it with cold feet, and I'm really doing some research, and I found that I need to speak to other people, other show promoters. So I reached out to a friend of mine that I consider a friend. I'm a big fan of his channel, but he is also a show promoter. So I says, why don't I bring him on, get some wisdom and some advice from him? And I really took my time with this, and I really carved out some questions because I really wanted to make the most of the opportunity, and I wanted to make the most of my content. So please help me welcome none other than Beau 1 Million Cubs.
Hey, what's up?
What up, Beau? Thank you, brother, for coming on. This is a blast having you on. I typically only deal with topics of the rookie card, and so it's kind of strange for me to kind of go off topic and bring somebody in for something that is completely out of my realm, but I need your help, brother.
I love it. I'm here for you, man.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and let's get started with the interview because I want to, we have some juicy questions for you. And I'm going to start basically with just general operational questions. Now, the first question is, what are the key responsibilities of a sports card show promoter?
Oh, man. So, I think some of the biggest responsibilities for running a show.
That's Ernie.
Ernie, my dog, is my little puppy is with me. He's 12 weeks old, and so yeah. I thought by the time we started he would be napping, but apparently not. So I'll try not to let him interrupt my thoughts. But some of the bigger responsibilities I think of running a card show, obviously, I won't get into the most obvious ones, being honest, and because that just goes without saying. Like everyday life, it doesn't matter if you're a card show promoter or just a human being on the street. You got to be all those things. So
you're right.
From a card show perspective, I think organization is one of the biggest responsibilities that, for me, being somewhat disorganized. I'm an organized, disorganized mess in many things around the house. My wife would probably say I'm more disorganized than what I even think. But I keep a Google sheet of various things just to try to keep as organized as I possibly can in terms of checklists with what I need, whether it be signage, who has tables, maps of the rooms that the dealer tables are in. So I think the biggest one is organization and just preparedness. Knowing what you're getting into, mapping out the show floor, and I think some of those are the bigger ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many card shows do you run, Beau?
I just run one, the Madison Card Show in Madison, Wisconsin. It's been going on since my very first show. It's the only show I've ever promoted. I started back in April of 2021, coming right out of the pandemic, and things started to open up. And so I've helped dabble in some other shows, just kind of assisting. But in terms of promoting my own show, it's just the Madison show.
Okay. And you have that once a month? Is it regional or quarterly or what?
It's once a month. It's monthly. Same location. It's at the Sheraton Hotel, right in Madison, Wisconsin.
John Nolan Drive.
Yeah, John Nolan Drive. Same location since I started, but it's expanded as the show has grown. We've grown out of multiple rooms, and the August show is 4 rooms, 200 total tables. So it's been a lot of fun.
Okay, there he is. It's a he, right?
Yeah, yep. Ernie after Mr. Cub. Say hi. What's up?
Ernie Bakes. All right. So how do you typically find and secure a venue for a show?
This is in promoting a card show. That is the toughest task that a promoter will go through in terms of finding a good location. I think what I tell people that are looking to promote a show is kind of like shopping for a house, really. Don't fall in love with a location before you get pricing, because you're going to fall in love with a venue and based on its location and its amenities and what it offers. And then you will get pricing on that venue, and you're going to be priced out, and it's going to be disappointing, kind of like shopping for the perfect house. The best houses that you find, unfortunately, could be in many of our instances could be out of our price range. So, find locations, find venues, and then get pricing before you really go into the nuts and bolts of planning a show. Is getting that pricing down and finding locations.
And what's a price range? Have you noticed?
That can vary. The funny thing is, I was looking at, I grew up downstate Illinois, kind of near the Quad Cities, rural, small town, but there's a hotel with a banquet hall. And there's a lot of wedding receptions that they host. And, it's in a small town, 800 people, not a single stoplight in the town. And I get pricing, and the pricing at that venue was about the same as what I pay for a prime location in Madison, Wisconsin, which is 2 hours away from several million. John Nolan Drive is less than 2 hours to the Donald Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, O'Hare Airport, an hour from Milwaukee, and Anawan, where I grew up and where I was getting pricing on this venue is 35 minutes from the Quad Cities and 2.5 hours from Chicago. So pricing is really going to fluctuate, and it doesn't always have to be like the perfect, just because I'm, in Madison or, Chicago. There could be venues that are, more affordable for, card shows in what a card show budget would be. But, typically, I have a friend who is starting a show downstate in Quincy, Illinois, and he was able to find a space for how much was it? It was only a few $100s for like a day, which is super cheap.
Yeah.
Makes me jealous. And then, you can get pricing. There's a large venue right across the street from where I host the Madison Card Show. It's the Alliant Energy Center, and they have breakout buildings. It's a huge arena where they have it's very outdated, but they have monster truck rallies, and they used to do WWF wrestling events there and concerts. But then they have smaller buildings as well. And even in the smaller spaces where I would get the same square footage that I do at the hotel, runs near $20,000 for a couple days with the setup prices and all that. So depending on venues, it could range from a few hundred to several thousand, tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I've got my eye on one in Cherville, Indiana, and it's a pretty nice place. It's in a hotel, but I'm hearing it's like $3,300 they're wanting for like a 2-day show, and I thought that was a little steep. But again, I don't know. I don't know what steep is.
Yeah, and that sounds pretty fair. That's in the ballpark of what the hotel that the Sheraton that the Madison show is held at.
Yeah.
And another thing that kind of with hotel shows especially, there can be in the Sheraton, there are the bigger ballroom where the show started and has the most tables is a venue for weddings. So that's what I run into. Having a monthly show is scheduling can be, a real pain if they have weddings, and I try to keep, separate weekends, similar weekends, and it doesn't always work out in terms of, if they have other events going on at the venue.
Yeah, which leads nicely into my next question. As far as the calendar, I mean, what are some things that you look at? What are some factors, some challenges that you have when it comes to the calendar?
Initially, when I very first started, I looked at events calendars with a fine-tooth comb because I didn't want to go up against Wisconsin Badger home football games. I didn't want to go against marathons that are hosted. They do like an Ironman here in Madison. So there's a lot of like larger events that I was afraid to compete against. But in reality, as the show grew, it grew kind of out of a local card show, and it became more of a regional attraction where local events to Madison, Wisconsin really didn't have as much of an impact than what I initially thought. But there's still weekends, that I avoid and target as well. The last weekend in July, I'm not going to have a card show because it's the National. Now, I think that weekend is a good weekend for small card shows because a very small amount of people will actually go to the National, whether it's, closer to home in Rosemont, or if it's in Cleveland or Atlantic City or wherever it might be. But for a lot of the dealers that set up at my show, they do set up at the National, and many others will go to the National. So it would really impact my dealership. And I target the week before the National because a lot of buyers come in and spend a lot of money with the dealers because they want to take stuff to the National. So, there's usually weekends that I like to target and that I like to stay away from. I like to stay away from homecoming at the University of Wisconsin, where a regular football game doesn't really impact it, but homecoming does, because all the hotels are booked. The Sheraton is booked. So that creates a parking issue that I already battle, just with all the dealers and the customers that come through. So those are some of the things that I look at calendar wise, try to avoid other shows that are in the area or that dealers will set up at on a regular basis, and try to avoid those.
Interesting. That's good stuff. I want to move into kind of some challenges that you may face, and maybe kind of get your take on possible solutions. How would you handle these kind of situations? But what are the biggest challenges you face when trying to organize a sports card show? What do you have you noticed?
From the get-go, something we touched on was finding a venue, and that was probably the biggest challenge that presented itself at the beginning, was finding a venue, finding, a price point that we could work with. It's a whole lot different. Today it would be a lot different than what it was in April of 2021, because there just weren't events, especially here in Madison, Wisconsin. There just weren't events. We still had a lot of restrictions when I started the show, with social distancing and with how many people could be in the room at the same time. So the hotel was jumping at any opportunity to book rooms and get some type of income that they hadn't been getting for a year and a half. So that's something that, it would be a lot different today than how I started. But along the path, I've talked to other promoters or people that are looking into promoting, and that's a challenge they face, is finding venues at a feasible price, and then just getting the word out about the show and getting dealers, because the biggest challenge, once you find that venue, the biggest challenge becomes getting dealers to commit to your show being a first show. Because there's no, a show that's been around, no matter what show it has, whether it's been around 3 years or 30 years, there's a record of, okay, there's a consistent number of buyers that come through the door. They know other dealers that have set up, but when you're a first time show, you don't have that. So you're just kind of, you got to promote as best you can and get those dealers that can come through the door and then build from there, over the next few shows.
So let me ask you, like, what do you do if you find like low attendance at one? What do you do something to kind of help the attendance the next show? Or maybe you ran across that in the beginning. How were your shows in the beginning as far as attendance?
Surprisingly really good in terms of where I started. The very first show was 17 tables, no promoting, in terms of, with the exception of Beckett, the Beckett calendar. I think Sports Collectors Digest, their calendar. Outside of that, it was just kind of tweeting and Facebook, non-sponsored ads. But I think I had almost 200 through the door in the first show, and then the second show. And then I kind of learned up on Facebook sponsored ads and just trying to develop good marketing campaigns with that. And then the growth from there was just astonishing based on, how much you pay for sponsored ads, how much I was paying for sponsored ads, and the results that, the return I got on that investment was phenomenal. So there are outliers month to month in terms of poor attendance. And I think it's just as a promoter, if there is poor attendance, we always try to find a scapegoat. And in reality, it just is what it is. You're familiar with sales. You're going to have a day where sales are down, and it's just, we don't want to repeat over and over again, but there are times where, you're not going to have a great sales day. There's going to be peaks and valleys. And that's kind of how it is with attendance. There could be a number of reasons, but as long as it's not a repeat, if it's a first show with poor attendance, that really hurts. So that's why you really want to pump up that first show, get the marketing out, so you don't get a letdown, because you're already with the dealers at a first show, they're already going to be skeptical, like, oh, this is the first show, I don't know how it's going to go. So you really want to start off with a bang, and get traffic in there, so you can kind of appease those nervous thoughts. But once you're established and you see it, 1 month could be an outlier, but if it's 2 months in a row, depending on the calendar, and then you start to look at different things that you could potentially do to increase attendance.
Man, and you said you started with 17 tables. Did I hear you right?
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations on that. How about last minute vendor cancellations? How do you navigate through that water?
It's the bane of our existence.
Yeah.
So there's really no way around it, especially as the numbers increase, and you're starting to deal with how many ever dealers you have. When you're in Northwest Indiana, I'm in Wisconsin, we have winters. They can be brutal at times. Sometimes it's just luck. I've been lucky, and I knock on wood, because there's going to be a weekend where I'm going to have really crappy weather, and it's going to put the show at risk. And that's just something that I expect doing a monthly show in Wisconsin. So weather is always an obstacle in the winter months here in the Midwest. Cars break down. People get sick. So there's a lot of different things that can really, affect last minute cancellations, whether it be a day before, whether it be the morning of. No shows can be a problem. So something that I eventually did after about a year, I had one show where I had like 8 or 9 dealers either no show or cancel the night before a show or the morning of a show, which is just, not only is it bad for me because it's taking money, away from my show and, from my business, but also I had a waiting list of dealers. And if those dealers, they're like, oh, I couldn't get in the show, and then they show up on show day and there's 8, 10, 12 empty tables, they're going to look at me like, you liar. You told me you were sold out. Do you have something against me? So now all of a sudden it's like, it makes me look like a bad guy because it's like, I can't help it. So from that point, I went to prepay for a lot of first-time dealers, dealers that I didn't know. And that really helped curb it. A lot of tire kickers. Yeah, I want tables. You follow up with them. Oh, I can't do it. Something came up. Or you follow up with them a few days before the show. Hey, are you still good for 2 tables? Oh, I was gonna email you, or I was gonna message you, but I can't make it now. Would you really have messaged me? It's Thursday and the show's Saturday. I don't know. So prepaying really saved a lot of those headaches. And those that I don't have prepaid, they've been with me. We've built that trust. I know that they're going to show up. And if they don't show up, it's legit. There's a legit reason if they have to cancel, late or, a couple days before, whenever it is. So, that's kind of one big thing that really helped along the way.
So you recommend just prepay and follow up.
Prepay and follow up, especially starting out. I think the following up is really critical.
You mentioned a little bit about marketing. Let's touch into that a little bit, because I believe you have a background in marketing, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I graduated from Western Illinois with a marketing degree.
I do not. I know that when you mentioned marketing through social media, is that through like you pay for that, like boost your post, or how does that work?
Yeah. So on Facebook, you can do like a boosted post, and then you can set your budget to whatever. When I first started promoting the Madison Card Show posts early on, the first couple months, it was just me throwing anything at the wall that would stick. I had no strategy behind it. And I listened to a couple podcasts on Facebook marketing, on the advertising side.
Yeah.
And I wrote down a few things that they had suggested, and that like flipped a switch, from the engagement that I received, from the turnout. I noticed people saying, "Oh, I saw your ad on Facebook," far more than I had the previous months that I had done that. So, just different strategies behind a good campaign, using Facebook, because every marketing platform is different. Every way you market is going to be different. The buzzword algorithm, we hear it a lot. The Facebook algorithm is its own beast. So you just try to feed that as much as it likes to provide the most benefits.
Is that the only platform you use to boost, is Facebook?
I do. So far, that's been the only paid platform that I've used. Facebook Meta also owns Instagram, so it also crosses into Instagram. I've looked into radio advertising. I had somebody reach out to me from a local station. It just didn't, it didn't really vibe with, my budget for radio. Didn't match up with, what I was really looking to get out of it.
Okay.
So it just wasn't a good match. Not that I don't think it, I don't think I come from a radio background also. So yeah. I worked in local radio for 12 years. So I believe in radio advertising, less in 2024 than what I did in 2008, but just the product of our times. But I just thought from what I'm doing, it's just not a good match.
Man, we've come a long way. I remember card shows back in the day. It was like on a half piece of paper. They would make like a flyer. Remember those?
Yes. I used to, when I guess my very first card show promoting was when I was like 8 years old. I would put, tables, like not a picnic table, but like a card table in my house. And I would spread cards out, and then I would create a handwritten flyer, and I would put it up at our local IGA grocery store. I don't think a single person came to my house card show, which now as an adult looking back, it's like, who's going to go to an 8-year-old's house for a card show? It's like, oh, I was upset as an 8-year-old that nobody would come shop at my card show, but now as an adult, I realize, yeah, it's a good thing. It's probably a good thing that nobody came to my card show.
Do you get a lot of? I know you do a YouTube show on just about every day. Does that help in your promotion with your channel? Have you noticed not with your channel, but with your card shows?
I think so. Absolutely. I think every touch, I was in sales, in the transportation industry, and our sales people were always preaching like, make touches. It doesn't have to be a phone call. It doesn't have to be an email. It can be, it can be as simple as, I had a couple, breweries, that were customers of mine. New Belgium Brewing in Fort Collins, Colorado was one of my customers. So they had a new beer that I would try. I'd go to the liquor store. I'd get a 6-pack. I'd take a picture of it, email. It's not a sales call. It's just, hey, it's a touch. So I think every touch you can make, whether it's a YouTube show promoting whatever, it's on Twitter, tweets, that's free, and that's great. Social media for the most part is free. We can tweet for free.
Yeah.
We can post on Facebook. There's groups on Facebook that sometimes it's like it's towing the line of their terms of their Facebook groups, but you can promote shows in there. So there's a lot of free avenues to get the word out, and I think the social media marketing and just putting yourself out there is on every channel you possibly can, because I mainly use Twitter, but there's a huge separate hobby, Instagram. And, I'm trying to get into Instagram. I just don't understand it. I need to, because I'm missing opportunities on Instagram by not being as active as I am. And same with Facebook. There's people that are Facebook only. And so I'm just trying to penetrate all of those platforms.
It's another touch, another avenue, right? Do you put something like on your eBay sales when you ship cards to people?
I do. So I do business cards that on the business card, it has the calendar for all of the dates that are booked, for whatever. And it has my email, it has my phone number, it has the Madison Card Show logo, the address of the venue, all that stuff. So I will put that in. I will slip that into eBay orders for anybody in like a 4 to 5 state region. So if somebody orders a card, especially from Wisconsin, the Chicagoland area, Northwest Indiana, even Michigan, I had somebody reach out, emailed me and said, hey, I received a Madison Card Show card in an eBay order. And I just I'm going to make it 6 hours away. I wanted to see if the show's still going on this date. And and I love when that happens, because it knows that you actually you made the touch. Somebody, not only did they see it, but now they're, it's a call to act. They're actually acting upon that business card they received. So I try it. Sometimes if I had outdated business cards, I'll throw those in if it's California or New York, and maybe just by sheer luck, they know somebody in Wisconsin or local or somewhere within the region, like, hey, I got this. Have you ever been to this card show? And maybe indirectly it could lead to somebody coming to the show. So yeah, I do that to all my orders within a few states away. And then, if I have outdated business cards, instead of throwing them away, tossing them, recycling them, I'll put those in orders that normally I wouldn't.
Super, super smart. All right. I want to move into some, I'm considering like some financial things now when it comes to, pricing for a booth. I know I was doing card shows between 1994 and 2004 here in this region. And back then it was about $40 for an 8-foot table. Is that the going rate still?
Yeah, it is. Really? Everything has gone up except dealer tables at card shows. It's amazing. and I still have dealers complain about the pricing.
Are you serious?
You can look at an old Beckett magazine from 1993, and it's like dealer tables $50, dealer tables $35. It's like most shows are still in that range. Like 50 is actually $50 is on the high side for when I started, and I started at $50.
Okay.
And I had a co-promoter at the time when we first started. I had a co-promoter, and he's like, I don't know, and it's a lot easier to start off at $50 and then do some discount. Okay, if you want multiple, do volume discounts, then starting at $25 and then saying, oh, it's 50 now. It's a lot easier to throw in some benefits down the road than it is to jack up the prices. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy that, me and another couple promoters that do shows in like Rockford and the western suburbs, we joke about it every month. Like, table prices haven't changed in 30 years. It's the only thing in the hobby that hasn't, if the inflation of everything else within the hobby, cards, wax, supplies, card table should be $200 based on the inflation of everything else within the industry. So yeah, $50 is the standard rate of tables.
Okay. Help me wrap my head around additional expenses. The only one that I can think of in my head is the facility of where it's being held. What other expenses do I have?
There's really, really from the start, that's about all you're going to have, with the exception of any advertising that you choose, whether it's local media or Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever. But outside of that, there's really not many other expenses to deal with. You could get into signage, depending on the location, and that can be as cheap as $20 printing a poster at Walgreens, which is what I do. Some of the signs, some of the sign display stands, I'll get some of those. I had more of a need to do that as I expanded at my show, and it grew out of the upstairs mezzanine and ballroom. And then I had a downstairs ballroom, and then I had a second downstairs ballroom, and then I opened a TCG room. So now I've got to have arrows going in every direction showing people, oh, there's more tables over here. And then it's like, well, I don't just need arrows. I need to explain there's 200 tables in this hotel, and this is where you find them. So signage could be, critical depending on how your setup is. So those are some of the other expenses. You could get into, if you do giveaways, door prizes, anything like that.
Do you find those beneficial?
Yes. Do what I say, do what I say, not what I do, because I have only done door prizes maybe twice out of 35, 40 shows.
Okay.
They're very handy. For a couple of respects, I don't think it really draws in, like a door prize. Say you give away a hobby box of Top Series 1, 2, update, whatever it might be. You're not going to get somebody off the street to come in and sign up for a door prize. That's not a big enough. If you're giving away something crazy, yes, but our budgets for a local card show, we don't have those type of budgets. But it's a nice added incentive for show goers and customers, and hopefully it's another carrot to dangle that keeps them coming back. I think more importantly, what door prizes can do is create a mailing list, collect emails, and then that way you can send out newsletters, or, hey, don't forget, or, I have to book my monthly shows 3 months at a time. So I just signed contracts for fourth quarter last week. So, I try to put it on the Facebook group and Instagram and Twitter, like, hey, here's the schedule for October through December. Here's all my upcoming show dates. So if I had a mailing list, I can use, and I still have some of the emails, and I can create one, and then I can say, hey, by the way, here's the upcoming show schedule. So I think it's beneficial more so from that aspect, and in terms of building a mailing list to promoting future shows and all that. And then it's an incentive for folks to, like, oh, hey, cool, I can sign up for a free hobby box.
That's a good idea. Hey guys, I'm sorry for the interruption, but I wanted your quick attention on two specific things. The first one, many of you have been asking me about purchasing a book directly from me for the purposes of wanting it autographed. I did get my order in from Amazon, and I do have my book available now on hand, True Rookie Cards. You can get it on a link that's in the show notes of this video, and that link is going to take you to a PayPal link. Go ahead and go through that PayPal link and do it through goods and services. I'm paying for shipping, but I'm going to charge $20 for the book instead of $18 that you can get it on Amazon. That just helps me with the shippings, the goods and services fees, and all of that. But I will then ship them out to you from my place, autographed the way you'd like it. If you want a specific inscription, please include that in the notes of the payment, and I will be sure to do that. Also, the second thing that I wanted to say is that in the beginning of this video, I misspoke. I said that there were no card shows in my region. There is one card show that I do want to make mention. It's a small 40-table show that we have here locally in Lake Station, Indiana. It's at a local VFW, but it's kind of inconsistent. It's like some months they have it, some months they don't. Sometimes they'll go 2 months, 3 months without having it. And I just wanted to be as I was editing this video with Beau, I noticed that I said that, and I was like, "Well, wait, let me correct that because that's not 100% accurate." We do have one local small show with 40 tables, if we even get 40 tables, and it's really inconsistent. What I'm planning on doing or wanting to do is having a show that's a little bit bigger in size. I'm looking at about 100 to 140 tables, and I'm looking to do it every 3 months. So that's kind of what I'm currently contemplating. With all that said, let's get back to the video with Beau. Beau has been a tremendous help. I hope you're enjoying this video. It's a good idea. What about food, Beau? Is that something you offer?
It's not something I offer. It's another good amenity. And it kind of depends. So with my location, the hotel has it's like a fake Starbucks. They serve Starbucks coffee. It's like a little cafe. Mm-hmm. And they have refrigerators. You can go down, buy a Pepsi. They have sandwiches, which is very nice. Salads, just some snacky type items, or even I guess lunch items, because there are sandwiches in there as well. So that helps. There in my upstairs ballroom, there are concession stands, which I just blocked off the entire time. The venue said, "Hey, would you like to have concession stands open?" And I said, "Let's just do one." And I have tables usually in front of where the concession stands are. They opened them up and they just didn't see much return on. But the biggest times of a card show is like 9 to noon, basically. And those are hours that really people aren't, if for breakfast, they've already eaten breakfast, before they come to the show. And if they leave the show noon, 11, even 1 o'clock, they're going to go eat lunch elsewhere and probably not interested in a hot dog or a cheap burger at a hotel. So it's nice for dealers, I think, more than anything. But I've noticed it really hasn't, it's not something I don't really see people complaining about. Oh, there's no food. A lot of dealers, what I do is even shows where I set up and there is food on site, whether it's a food truck or a concession stand, more times than not, I just bring my own, like whether it's a sandwich or a protein bar. And then, maybe I'll go out, have something to eat after the show. So I don't think food is that important. If it's just a one-day show, okay. I don't think it's important. If it's a multi-day show, then we're talking a little different.
Right. What are your show hours? What do you typically do?
I run 9 to 3. And that's something that I kind of dabbled with and played around with early on. The first couple shows, as it was building, the show hours were 9 to 4. Now it was still early on in the show. There was 17 tables in the first show. There was 25 tables the second show. So when there's that few tables, there's going to be fewer customers, and the customers that are there are going to be gone by, noon, 1 o'clock. So dealers were packing up. It's like, you know what? We don't need this last hour. So let's cut it back an hour, 9 to 3. And then as the show grew, I didn't want to, because there's a lot of traffic that comes in even before 9. just the way my show is set up, it's not like doors open at 9 and the floodgates open. There's multiple rooms. There's people in and out. So it would just be a nightmare to control customer traffic. So it's like, I welcome early birds. Just don't upset the dealers if they're setting up and they don't want you there. So moving back an hour to 8 o'clock, even though there's customers there early in the morning, a lot of my dealers are driving in from Chicago, from Minneapolis. So, that's a 3.5 hour drive. It's already a strain on many dealers getting there to set up by 8 o'clock for a 9 o'clock show. So moving it up an hour to 8 o'clock would, I think hinder more than anything. Yeah. So I think 9 to 3 is a really nice,
sweet spot.
Set time.
Yeah.
Sweet spot. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I want to, like, my biggest concerns that I have is basically making sure I have enough vendors. So let's talk about that a little bit. What do you recommend as far as recruiting vendors?
This is a good question from my own standpoint, because I didn't do card shows really before I started the Madison Card Show. I didn't know really anybody in the card community locally when I started my show. So how I started was I just tried to get the word out as much as possible. And I think that first show, pretty much everybody I had one guy who was, he basically travels all across the country and does card shows. He's from Florida. And he saw my show and I'm like, this is my first show, but he came out, he did it.
Wow.
And then I think it just kind of, it just more and more. And I think eventually more people heard about it, word got around, and it just kind of grew organically. And as I did shows, I think in May, so my first show was in April of 2021. And then in May of 2021, I think what really helped was I set up at another first time show, which was down in Rockford, and met the two promoters, Mike and John, who good friends of mine to this day, and do their shows. They do mine. We help each other out on promoting. I've sent my local dealers to their shows. They've sent their local dealers to my shows. And I think that was huge because it was almost like a lot of our dealers think we like promote the shows together. It's like, no, we're separate, but we just work well together. So I think that really helped boost both of our shows, their shows in Rockford at the time, and then my show. And so I think getting the word out just by going to shows and meeting people, and I just see continued growth and continued demand for dealers just by being out and about, setting up at other shows, meeting new dealers, and there's always going to be turnover. And it's funny, I can almost predict, okay, this guy's not going to be setting up at shows in a year, because I can, okay, this is the COVID collector that came in trying to get a quick buck, and what he's selling is crashed. He's not going to be in it for the long haul. And then there's other guys that, they've been doing this for 40 years and they're not stopping now. So it's kind of funny the different personalities that you meet along the way.
Yeah. Speaking of personalities, how do you manage, or like, let's say there's a dispute between a vendor and an attendee, or like a disagreement breaks out. Have you had to deal with stuff like that?
Yeah, unfortunately it happens. And fortunately for me, it hasn't happened. It's not a common occurrence. I think I've only had to step in twice in almost 40 shows when something like this happens. One instance was a customer had bought from a dealer, like this is Trevor Lawrence rookie year, like a PSA 10, some crazy, like $1,000 card basically. And he left the show, like literally left the show, went outside, and then 30 minutes later came back and said he wanted a refund, wanted to give the card back and wanted a refund. The dealer said, no, like you agreed to purchase it, you left. And
that's right.
So the customer was causing a scene. So I got called in and I said, "What's going on?" He told me, and he's like, "There's a mark, and it's a PSA 10, but apparently there was a mark on it." It's like, well, you bought a PSA 10, and he's like, "The lighting in here is bad," and I'm like, okay, and I said, well, where is it? Because I can't, like, I'm looking at it. He's like, well, the lighting's bad. And I said, okay, well, can you show me where this scratch is? And he's like, yeah, it's right there. You can't see it? And I'm like, well, you can see it pretty clearly now. You couldn't see it 30 minutes ago. And then he started dropping F-bombs, and I just had to ask him to leave, and he did. But you know, it's an unfortunate situation. And what I try to do is I don't want to, like, I'm just putting the show on. I'm not here to be an arbitrator,
Right.
But you do need to be an arbitrator at times. Like, you do need to step in the event something like this happens. That's a responsibility. But for the most part, this is between buyer and seller. And, you know, this is that event incident. That's the perfect example of why buying at a card show reigns superior to buying online. Like on eBay, you can't, bad lighting or not, you've got a phone with a flashlight on it. Like, do that. And where this is in the mezzanine, so the ceilings are pretty low. Like, put it up in the light. Like, you can't do that buying on eBay. You know, that's the good thing about a card show. So what I tell the dealer, like, if there's a dispute, like, you agreed to buy the card, like you saw it. It was, you know, it's PSA 10, whether it should have been or not, that's not up for debate. This is something that a buyer and seller need to work out. And you agreed to it. You bought it. You gave him money. You walked out. And if the seller doesn't want to, you know, he could have, maybe he had another PSA 10 in his car that I don't know why they would have done that, but you know, who knows?
This ain't eBay, bucko.
Exactly. So, you know, there are events that happens, and you just have to, you know, and when those incidents arise, whatever they might be, you just have to use common sense and, you know, to the best of your ability, make a decision on what the outcome will be.
How they say, as is, no warranty.
Yeah, right. All sales final.
All right. I want to move into kind of just trends and kind of the future of card shows. You know, we got Fanatics coming in. They're really making a strong imprint on card shows now. I'm thinking it's going to expand even more as we hear that they're going to do 2 more states this year. I think it's going to evolve even more as the years go on. Where do you see kind of the future of, like, the local card show?
I think it's full steam ahead still. Now, there's going to be, I should be careful how I say that, because it's going to be full steam ahead until it isn't. And there's going to be a time where it's not full steam ahead in the hobby. We're still in a boom, and you know, this isn't forever. Like, we're going to see a down period again, and we're going to see local card shows experience, you know, not as much traffic as what we're seeing today. And this is something that I've been waiting for to happen. Maybe that's just a pessimistic, you know, in the back of my mind, when's the other shoe going to drop? But I thought back in 2021, we were coming out of COVID. Okay, things went crazy in 2020. Things went crazy in early 2021. I think by early 2022, we're going to be, you know, not dead, but it's going to be back to 2017, 18 levels. And it kind of the opposite has happened. Now, something, you can't go into Walmart or Target and buy whatever you want and flip it for 3X anymore. You know, people have gotten wiser. The money's still there. Money's still flowing throughout the hobby. I see money flowing through card shows. The exact opposite happened to what I expected. When I first started the Madison Card Show, my dream was 50 tables. You know, I thought 40 is achievable. 50 would be amazing. If I could ever get to 50 tables, that would be amazing. And got there and blew past it. 200 tables still with a waiting list for a monthly card show in a hotel. But there's going to be a time where that's not the case. And I think, just be prepared and be ready for when that day comes. And that's kind of, how I look at it. With what Fanatics is doing, I love what Fanatics is doing because it's not a typical card. At least what we saw with Fanatics Fest, it was not a card show. It can't be compared to the National. It can't be compared to other card shows because it wasn't a card show. There was a card show at the event. It was part of the entire experience of Fanatics Fest. Now, with the other two that may come down the line, those may be more of, I think there'll be less of an experience of what the first one in New York City was. But I still think there's going to be kind of a Collecticon type vibe, Comic-Con type vibe to Fanatics Fest, which I don't think is right to compare to card shows, but it certainly could trickle down to other card shows. And create, okay, well, obviously people like this, and we'll see. That remains to be seen. But if people do choose within sports fandom, not just the hobby, but sports fandom, and hopefully some of that trickles into the card hobby, and that's where the demand is, we could see some of the bigger, regional or quarterly card shows have more of an experience type thing. And my thought is Fanatics kind of wants to gobble all of those opportunities up like they have with many other things. And, with what Rob has done at Burbank with his new deal with Fanatics, I would anticipate seeing a Fanatics Fest Burbank in the not so distant future. So I think they're kind of turning the apple cart upside down, or whatever that saying is. But I think as far as local card shows, it's going to be status quo because there's still demand for going into a hotel lobby or ballroom and shopping cards and not having to listen to loud music and breakers screaming "Let's go" and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
So
I
think we're safe.
I kind of see it like, and you start to see kind of their game plan now for 10xing the hobby, right? It's kind of like a blueprint of bringing the masses in from the sports fan side of things. And you kind of see how they're gonna bring in the masses with the athletes, the leagues, and the celebrities and all of that, and kind of introduce them to the corporates, right? The brands of different, hobby, like Tops and all the manufacturers and all that. And then it's going to trickle into, okay, well, here are some dealers. Here's an opportunity where you can buy singles. And I think it's just kind of like a funneling, like a cookie cutter assembly line, like they're making to get people into the hobby. So yeah, I think they're going to make an impact on they're going to upset the apple cart, like you said, as far as card shows are concerned, but I don't think it's going to happen right away. I think we're talking way down the road, and we'll see how it all evolves. I do think, there is a space still for the local card shows, only because going to these big events, they're awesome, but they are expensive, man. And not everybody can participate in those types of things. I can maybe do one or two a year financially, and that's it. And so, yeah, man, I wanted to ask you this, as far as, do you recommend, like, say I wanted to set up at my own card show, do you recommend that?
Yes. I would say hold off on the first event.
Okay.
And I think I did set up at the first event, but it was also only 17 tables. So I think depending on the size, and I think it's also your comfort level, and space. Like if you have other dealers if you have demand for all spaces available, then I sit it out. And I guess it's all within your comfort zone of managing the show. And once like most of the management of promoting a card show is before, like there shouldn't really be much management on show day, with the exception of showing dealers their tables, their spots. But once the show's going, once the doors open and the crowd is in, there's really not much managing to do. So I do set up, and now that my show has grown to 200 tables, that's a lot to manage even on show day. Just collecting payments that I still have to collect from my regular dealers that set up on a monthly basis. There's more to do with showing people to their tables and early on, once right before the show's starting, there's a lot more work to it. But I will be downsizing the show based on venue availability for the newer rooms that I have that I've had over the summer. So once I'm scaling back to 140 tables, which is still a decent sized show for a monthly, but it's manageable, and it's something that I feel comfortable still setting up. Just a couple tables with bargain boxes. I can leave and doing bargain boxes. That I guess that also goes into it. If you have showcases, I wouldn't recommend it unless you have somebody at your table watching it, and dealing with it. I do bargain box, quarter boxes, dollar boxes. I'm not too concerned, and the dealers kind of know that I'm out and about, so they're watching my stuff as much as they can. But I'm not worried from that. From what I bring to a show, I'm not worried about theft. I think it's all based on your comfort level.
Okay.
In my comfort level, I get nervous. Like if I open a new room, it's like, I have this, I want to be focused on the task at hand. So dealing comes secondary, but once I get comfortable, okay, I've done this several months. I know what I'm in for. I can do this fine. So as long as it fits my comfort level, I think it's fine.
How do you manage, like, you have some dealers that may bust your chops that they want to be closer to the door versus the back of the room. How do you deal with all that?
So that's the first headache. That's the number one headache that you'll have as a promoter.
Yeah.
So when I started, it was a giant room with 17 tables. It was pick a table. Then as it grew to the footprint, once I grew out of the first ballroom, by that point, I had regulars who were there on a monthly basis. So basically, you claimed your spot. You want here, if it's a couple months in, you want to switch spots, go for it. I create maps. So this is my third ballroom map that I've created.
Okay.
Which I love the third ballroom map because it's kind of an open slate where there's not, it's only been in use for 6, 7, 8 months. So there hasn't been a lot of loyalty to specific spaces in that room. But the upstairs room, which is where I started, there's a lot of loyalty. And so it's really playing Tetris with, fitting names. Oh, this person's not going to be at the show this month. So I know I have 2 spots. Guys will request, well, I want to be upstairs. I want to be downstairs. I want to be in this room. And so I just had to answer a couple messages this morning. I'm like, I've got space, but not where you want it. So if you're interested, you're going to have to be in this ballroom or this room or wherever it might be. So basically seniority rules, and those dealers that have been with me since the first show or since the first few shows, and they've been, regular dealers, they're going to get their pick of where they want, and they have, and they've been established in those spots. But then sometimes there's dealers that are kind of in and out, and they'll do every 3 months or every 2 months. And I try to put them where they usually are, but it doesn't always work. And you'll get some complaints. I get some complaints on, oh, this is a bad spot. For the most part, there is no bad spot at a card show. It's what you have and what your prices are. And people will find you. It's a card show. If you have really good stuff at really good prices, it doesn't matter if you're in the closet. Because if somebody, that guy in the closet has really good dollar boxes, there's going to be, that closet's going to be flooded with people looking through your dollar boxes. So, and I try to tell dealers that, and most of them get it, but maybe some of the newer ones don't really kind of understand the lay of the land of how a card show works. But hopefully you teach them and hopefully they learn, and they don't have to be taught, but hopefully they learn and realize. But yeah, that's an issue. That's an issue that you'll hear.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you use just seniority is roster type thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And then the rest of it is kind of like you let them pick. Like say all your seniority guys already picked, you still have tables available.
Yep.
And it kind of like first come, first serve. Here's what's available. You pick. Is that how you do it?
Kind of, I guess. I guess so. What I've developed into is, I think when you first setting up, one of my biggest like concerns was, am I going to have enough space? If I add X amount of tables, am I still going to have the right amount of space? And then eventually you figure out what type of space you're working with, how many tables. And then that's when I started using the maps. Okay, I've mapped out the room, the State Street Ballroom, which is a room that I never used that room because I used all of the tables that the hotel had. So I went out and bought 20 tables of my own and used all those. And then it was, okay, if you want to set up, you've got to bring your own 6-foot table. And so I brought a tape measure. I'm on my hands and knees with painter's tape, baseball card tape, and I'm mapping out, okay, I can fit 5 tables on this row, 4 in this row. I've got the space to do this. And then I was able to create, my handmade map, make some copies, and then that way I can fill it in. So I basically assign spots. The regulars have their spots. So that's easy. That's just, almost permanent marker. You can put those in. And then there's openings. If people request spots, I can say, okay, I've got 2 tables in this room that you want. Here's where it is. Are you cool with that? Usually I don't. Usually it's just like, here's where your tables are. And it just makes it a lot easier. You don't have people like, oh, I wanted to be there. I was there last month, and all that. So it's going to evolve over time. The first show is kind of a free for all, and it's basically first come, first serve is kind of how I would handle it. And that's how I handle, some of the new rooms. I'm like, here's the spaces, I'm going to put your name on a chair or a table just for my, so I know like everybody's accounted for. Mm-hmm. But if you come in and you're first in the room and you don't like where your name tag is, just move it and just make sure you move that other name tag to where yours was, and handle it that way.
Beau, do you have any like sponsors, anybody that helps you pay for this type of thing?
Yeah. So I started sponsorships about a year and a half ago, and essentially it's just for the advertising. So the advertising that I do on Facebook is completely offset by sponsorships. And you can set that at whatever amount you choose. And so basically I say, here's what the sponsorship is. This is Facebook only. This does not include signage. This does not include anything else. You don't get to pick your spot in the room. There's no other benefits. The money you're paying is going to Facebook advertising, and in exchange, you're listed on the Facebook ad. You are linked. Your group is linked on Facebook. So the ad pops up in somewhere and they can click on your link and there's your breaker group. I have a breaker, I think, that's on. They don't scream, let's go. So I like that. I have a PSA group subber that's a sponsor. And then I have a dealer who specializes in basically antiques. He kind of curates his spot as what you would see at an antique booth at an antique mall. And that's kind of what him and his wife do. They run an antique shop, but he has sports memorabilia and vintage cards at his spot. And he's another sponsor. So they get their, and I limit it. I have 3. I've done as many as 5. But I think 3 is it fits in my Canva thing that I make up real nicely. And so that you can get more creative with sponsorships for door prizes, have a card shop sponsor and they hand out a Top Series 1 box, and whatever. But with the sponsorships, I don't get greedy. I don't pocket the money. I put it to good use through promotions. I know the guys in Rockford put theirs to use through their promotions, and then they also buy like donuts and coffee in the morning, which is a nice little perk as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Well, Beau, man, it's fantastic. Your story, you started the card show 3 years ago with 17 tables. You have grown it to now 140 tables.
200.
200. Oh my goodness. But
I'm going down to 140.
Oh my goodness. See there. That's good. That's good. Okay. It's more manageable, I'm assuming.
It's more manageable. And to be honest with you, from $1, I'll make more profit going to 140 tables based on the rent that I pay on the room. So, and I don't have to set up 2 ballrooms myself, because in the contract, I have to set those rooms up because they don't have tables. So not only will I save a few hours on Friday night setting up 2 ballrooms, I'll make more money out of the deal. So seems pretty obvious to make that downsize move.
Yeah, it does. That's always thinking ahead. I love it, man. That's how you do it, right? Well, I'm not really one that I haven't committed yet. It's just an opportunity that me and a couple of local friends have been talking about. And we're like, hey, man, what is that? There's nothing around here. And it's like, man, you should do it, Victor. I'm like,
you are the anointed one.
Let me learn about it first, see if that's something I really want to dive into and commit to, Beau. But you have been a tremendous help, brother. Not only that, I give you so much props because, running what I'm doing, a YouTube channel and everything else that I'm doing, and websites, and I had to start selling cards, and it's not something that I was a fan of doing, but I found it necessary. And when I came across your content, you take the time to teach us how to sell on eBay. I built my eBay store on the advice that you were giving me. I know I even visited your website. You have a website where you give detailed steps on how to start your own store and how to do it, and daily content. You're so transparent with what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I'm sure you don't give us all the secrets, but you give us enough to get the ball rolling, man. And I've the success I've had on eBay in the last year and a half, I owe it to you, man. And I'm a debt of gratitude for everything you've taught me.
Thanks,
up the good work.
I really appreciate that. And it's words like that's what it's all about. Like,
yeah,
the advice that I give out and the tips that I give out, I can't say that I'm a genius and I developed all of those ideas on my own. Like, people taught me all that stuff. And so I just want to pass it along. Like, I didn't come up with any ideas. Like, I come up with 0 ideas. Every idea that I've had is borrowed. So I just pass it on.
Pass it forward, right? Now, you've had one heck of a year this year, Beau, with you finally accomplished your 1 million Cub cards.
I did.
You got to throw out the first pitch at a Cubs game, which I saw on my living room television set, and Topps made you a 1-of-1 superfractor.
It's amazing, because I did not expect. I knew that they were going to give me the 1 millionth card. They had reached out to me a couple months ahead of time. They had been Topps in the background was talking to the Chicago Cubs, and they wanted to do something to start the season. They did the math on, okay, he's getting this many cards, he should hit it around opening day, which also was by design on my part. Because I didn't want to hit it in December, the middle of the off season. So so Topps flew out to my house, did a bunch of filming. That's when I learned I was going to be throwing out the first pitch. That got me nervous. I hadn't thrown a baseball in 20 years. And they gave me the 1 millionth card, my own superfractor, on the field. So it was truly amazing.
It was.
It's I come from a small town, and growing up, Chicago was like another planet to me. My family couldn't afford to go to Cubs games and do stuff. We were able to go to the city a couple times during my childhood, but it was, I see things happen. It's like, well, things like that don't happen to a kid from Anawan, Illinois. Like, that's make believe stuff. And for that to happen, it was really like just speechless. It's hard to explain. Like
It is. It's
growing
overwhelming,
up
right?
and then stepping foot on the mound at Wrigley and
Wow.
on game day, and throwing a pitch was, and then just talking to Kerry Wood after the first pitch, and Kerry Wood's asking about baseball cards, and I was excited to tell him about his cards, and he's like, does Adam Greenberg have any baseball cards? And I'm like, yeah, actually, he's got quite a few. You'd be surprised. Adam Greenberg was hit in the head in his very first at bat when he made his major league debut and like broke his skull. It was a very scary injury.
Oh,
and
man.
then never made it back until the Marlins. It kind of a gimmick type deal where the Marlins called him up for a game, and he got an at bat for the Marlins several years later. So, and he was teammates with Kerry Wood. So just crazy day.
Well, Beau, I appreciate you coming on, man. Give us your YouTube channel and tell us when you come on and all that good stuff.
1 Million Cubs Project on YouTube. I do a show called Hobby Evolution. Most mornings at 7 a.m. Central, usually Monday through Friday, right at 7 a.m. Central. Weekends kind of up in the air based on my schedule. And then most social media outlets, I'm 1 Million Cubs and 1millioncubs.com. I don't update the website, but it is a good spot to find my various channels and how to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. I go to work, and we typically have to do a job briefing like first thing in the morning. And then sometimes the job briefings take a little longer than usual. But then I get notification, and it's like, Beau is live on YouTube. Okay, hurry up with this. Let's get this job briefing moving. I got stuff to do. And then that's when I
love it.
I hop in my truck and I put you on first thing. But keep up the good work, brother. Appreciate all your help. Until we do this again, man. Thank you for coming on.
Sounds good. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Okay.